UK's best-known motoring lawyer, the man they call Mr. Loophole, says that cyclists should have to take a road test to help cut the number of deaths each year. Nick Freeman wants all bikes to have an annual MOT test and a licence plate. He's with us this morning. Hello, Nick Freeman. Good morning to you.
Morning, Vinny.
Also with us, commentator and keen cyclist Malachy O'Doherty. Good morning, Malachy.
Morning, Vinny. Morning, Nick.
Now, Nick,
Good morning.
I understand when we do items on cycling that it very much boils the blood off the cyclists and the people that seem to find them irritating on the road. So let's try and stay away from that and focus on the real reason you think this kind of measure is important, because it will annoy a lot of people.
Yeah, well, it's not designed to annoy people. It's one of 10 measures that I've actually suggested that the government should embrace to increase road safety, reduce the number of deaths, which are at an all-time high over the past 5 years. And we've now got, over the last 5 years, 2.6 more vehicles, 2.6 million more vehicles on our roads. So we need to do something. And cycling is obviously a very good thing. It's a beneficial thing, but it's very dangerous. We're very limited with the space we have. And I think we need to bring cycling up to date. We need to have specific legislation to ensure that there is a sort of parity with cyclists and motorists.
Okay,
so for example, you can't get into a car and drive without passing a test. Why should you get on a bike and be able to cycle without passing a test? Is your vision okay? Do you know the highway code? Do you know how to cycle safely and properly? What is wrong with suggesting that people actually should have some degree of proficiency test?
Okay, so what exactly is it you want? It's a test to get on the road? Do you have to renew that test?
I think cyclists should take a proficiency test. I think their vehicles should have MOT. I think it's vitally important that the laws change so that we are able to identify cyclists, because the reality is cyclists, like motorists, commit offences. But when cyclists commit offences, we have no idea who it is. And so what I'm suggesting is a system which they adopt in Germany. They wear a tabard with a unique number on which relates to them, so that if they were to infringe the road traffic law, which needs revamping completely to accommodate cyclists, then we would know who is responsible. There would be some accountability. And I do believe if there is accountability, then people will cycle more responsibly.
You want cyclists to be prosecuted if they jump red lights, just like motorists are. On drink driving, you want to see a reduction in the blood alcohol limit. And I take it that's relating to cyclists again.
Well, absolutely. The law in relation to cyclists is ridiculous.
What is it at the minute?
Well, you simply get a fine. There's no disqualification. That to me is sheer lunacy. And we need to have a point system for cyclists. We need to have disqualification if they amass a certain number of points. There needs to be a parity. And it makes sense. All I'm trying to do is to suggest something that makes our road safer and reduces the number of fatal accidents and serious injury.
There's a whole list of things that you want, including banning
mobile phones. Mobile phones are as dangerous, whether they're hands-free or handheld, as drink driving.
So you want them for a cyclist totally removed? You can't use a mobile phone whether it's on hands-free or not?
And for motorists.
Okay, well, let's see what you think at home this morning. 030 30 80 55 55. Malachy, you're a cyclist, so if someone says to you, you've got to do a test, you've got to get your bike MOT'd and put a plate on it.
Well, I'm not 100% averse to those things. I do want to be safer on the road. And I also, and this might sound unexpected from me, but I also want to be safe from other cyclists, because occasionally another cyclist will bump into you as well as a car might. I think the first thing we have to consider is that government policy on cycling is about much more than road use and transport. It's about the environment and it's about health. And therefore the government wants to incentivise more people to use their bicycles for the sake of getting cars off the road, for the sake of basically improving the general health of the population and thereby lowering the bill for healthcare and so on.
How would this incentivise more people to take up cycling if there's a whole list of things you now have to do, including taking a test?
That's exactly what I'm saying, that if you introduce a whole lot of new rules, then what you find is that fewer people will get on the bike and fewer people will use a bike. For instance, one of the things you didn't come to there, but it's in the list as well, is the mandatory use of helmets. I mean, research in other countries showed that where you had a rule that a cyclist must wear a helmet, which is a perfectly sensible thing to do. I mean, you'd be daft to go and cycle through town without a helmet on. still in all, what will happen if you make that a rule is about 50% of the numbers who cycle will stop cycling because they won't be able to find their helmet in the morning, or they won't bother buying one, or whatever. But the numbers drop. So all in all, Nick's got some interesting ideas, but it has to be seen within the broader context. The other worry I have just is, about insisting on things that could be managed through advice. I mean, I've said this before on the programme that there used to be a time when you had far more advisory, not advertisements. There's public information films on television, for instance, and the BBC used them as well, showing people how to approach a roundabout, how to use the hard shoulder in the motorway. And we do have some on cycling, but we don't have a lot. So if there was a very concerted, if the government wants more people on their bikes, then it should put its money into strong advice for cyclists on how to use the road and how to keep themselves safe on the road.
Let's get some calls on this. Jim, good morning to you.
Good morning, Vinny.
What do you think?
Sorry, one thing. I think we give way too much to cyclists. Now cyclists are going to be allowed to use this new bus lane.
They're allowed to use it at the minute.
What?
They're currently allowed to use bus lanes.
Use it already?
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's do it this way. Give up the footpath, cyclists. Now, I'll give you an example. I got hit from the back by a cyclist, ended up on my front on a pavement and hit my head on it. So I did. And the cyclist just drove away.
Were you hurt?
I was hurt, yes. I'd just come out of hospital about 3 months after having open heart surgery. So I did. I reported it to the police, and you know what they said? We don't stop cyclists simply because they give us the wrong name when we ask for it, and there's no identification on the bicycle. To
be fair to cyclists, I'm sure that the majority would not do that because that in itself is illegal. But just to go back to what happened to you, did they pause? Did you get any kind of...
they did not.
Did they were aware they had hit you?
No, they were aware that they'd hit me because they used their elbows to push me out of the way. Now, they didn't have a bell on it. If they had rung the bell, I would have immediately stopped. But they don't. And I'll tell you something else too. It's a damn disgrace in the city centre where you have cyclists on the footpath and you have these young guys on these skateboards on it as well. And they've no insurance.
Well, stay there for a second, Jim. I want to ask Nick, what is the actual law regarding using the footpath if you're not just walking on it?
It's different in Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. By the way,
cyclists are not allowed to use footpaths.
Say that again, Nick.
Sorry, cyclists are not allowed to use footpaths.
And is that the same here, Malik? Are you saying it's different?
I think it's different here. Certainly there are some footpaths which are divided into cycle lanes, like going down past the Ormo Park.
I'm sorry, Malcolm. If it's a designated cycle lane, then that, of course, is different.
I think also,
but if it's a general footpath...
Yeah, but I do think that even in that case, and I would need to confirm it, but I do think the law is different in Northern Ireland. I think in England you can be hit with a spot fine of £30.
I think we've looked at this in the programme before, and you're not meant to use normal footpaths. Nick, you want to do this to cut the number of deaths each year. But is that moving the responsibility?
I'm also
yeah, but let me just ask you a question. Is that moving the responsibility away from the motorist? And maybe I'm wrong, but I would assume when a motorist and a cyclist collide, the motorist is going to come off better most of the time.
Yes, of course.
And is it not more likely that they, maybe I'm wrong, are more responsible because they're in this big machine and a cyclist is just on a bike vulnerable?
I agree, they're less vulnerable. But what we need is we all need to assume responsibility. But both sides. I've also suggested that motorists learn as part of their test how to overtake cyclists. I'm not just saying it's all cyclists, it's two-way traffic. We all need to deal with this together.
Okay, Anonymous in Ballygassoon.
I was happy to give my name, Pat Farron here.
Oh, sorry, Pat. It says here and it actually says Anon-Pat in Ballygassoon, so I just thought I'd go for Ballygassoon.
No problem.
I like saying that. Go ahead, Pat.
I know who we are and where we are. With regard to MOTs for bicycles,
yes.
My memory of one, and this is going back to the last century now, the latter half of the last century, a policeman could pull you, so if you were on the road with a bicycle, and he could pull you and examine your vehicle. And if you didn't have a bell, and if your brakes weren't, your brakes weren't working properly, you got a summons, and you appeared in court, and you would get a fine, relating to the lack of, sort of the proper equipment on your bicycle.
So are you in favour of this then? Would you encourage that you have to MOT your bike, get a licence plate, take a test?
Well, I don't know about what it's called about all them, but I think it certainly would be the one item, and the previous caller there mentioned it. And I don't know what the law on it is, but I think every bicycle should have some sort of a bell or a horn.
Do you know what? We were up in, where were we? Portrush on Sunday filming, and there was cyclists coming, and I just wasn't, I thought it was someone's mobile phone, and it was a cyclist behind me, so I'm not sure people are, I was walking, but are aware. Do you cycle in Ballycassoon, Pat?
I do, occasionally.
Do you wear a helmet?
No.
Why not?
Because I've never wore a helmet, and I don't see the sense of a helmet on a bicycle. You're not going hard enough on a bicycle for the...
But the point is, as Nick Freeman is trying to make, if you come in contact with a car, a moving vehicle, regardless of who's at fault, then that helmet could save your life.
Oh, absolutely. No, you're right. It's just maybe I'm old-fashioned, right?
But, that doesn't necessarily mean we shouldn't change the law,
no,
obviously,
I know
Pat.
It doesn't mean other people shouldn't wear helmets if they want to, yeah?
Okay, Pat, thank you very much. John in Ballyclare. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Vinny.
You're a cyclist.
Yes, I'm a cyclist. I'm also involved in logistics, and I'm a pensioner.
Right?
So,
what? A pensioner?
A pensioner.
A pensioner.
He's trying to suggest he's of a certain age.
I'm maybe going to...
Do you wear that lycra as well then, John?
I'm maybe going to shoot myself... Yes, I do. I'm maybe going to shoot myself in the foot here.
Please don't.
I happen to be in the bus lane there on Sunday in Belfast.
Right.
And I do see the sign, cyclists are allowed in the bus lane.
Yes.
But I think they shouldn't be.
Why?
Well, you take... There's this new glider that's going to be coming into operation soon.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm out for a leisurely ride on a Sunday afternoon or any day, and that glider comes behind me, how's he going to get past? It's going to hold the whole traffic up.
Well, we've had debates on this very programme before. I guess one of the reasons I would assume that cyclists are allowed in the bus lane is that there is less traffic. There's meant to be than in the normal lane. Therefore, it's maybe a little bit safer. But I get what you're saying. If they hold up. What about cyclists on the open road, John? We hear quite often, and I think this is one of the issues that Nick has brought up, bad cycling. You get bad drivers, you get bad cyclists, people that hog the entire road, or they maybe are in the fast lane when they shouldn't be. Should there be action taken there?
I would go out with my wife in the cycles. I'm not in a club or anything like that there. Just the two of us would go out. We wouldn't ride side by side. We'd ride one behind the other.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be advised to ride side by side. I mean, if the cycling, I think the police would advise you to ride side by side.
Why?
I think it's just regarded as safer that way. I mean, the danger of the cyclist is a lot of people seem to think the cyclist should go into the curb. The cyclist should take the risk and make space for a car. I mean, if there isn't enough space for a car to get well comfortably around me, then I'm not going to, nudge in towards the curb to make room for them. And you simply are safer as a pair. You are entitled to the space that a car would have. As far as the bus lane is concerned, I haven't been down the cycle lane yet with the new glider buses, but I've been often down the bus lane on the Ormer Road, with buses. And, the speed of a bicycle and the speed of a bus pretty much average out as equal. And when the bus stops at a place, it's very often the bike that'll overtake the bus rather than the bike obstruct the bus.
Benny?
Yes?
Benny, when I'm out cycling there on an ordinary road there, I also have a motorbike as well. And when I was doing the test for the motorbike, the instructor told me to stay out half on my side of the road, to stay out in the middle of that half. And I do the same in the bicycle. Because what happens, that gentleman on there is quite right. What happens, somebody will go past you, they'll push you into the side of the curb. There's maybe a gully or something there, you hit it and you're off, and they're away.
Yeah, and what I was told before is some cyclists will cycle side by side because then the car has to go out further to get round, whereas if there's one single line, then you might get a bit closer and try and nip past and maybe in between another car. John, thank you. Stuart in South Belfast. Good morning, Stuart.
Hello, how you doing?
All right, you?
Doing great. One thing that really does annoy me is that when there's a designated cycling lane, say like a long dual carriageway, and the cyclists don't use it, and they drive out onto the dual carriageway.
Does that happen that often, though? Is that a bit unfair?
No.
I think club cyclists don't like the cycle lanes. I think when they're going out, in the pack, on a club ride, where they're going for speed, I think they don't like the cycle lane.
Yeah, this is that's a lot of single, especially along the dual carriageway, coming out from Belfast, and they tend to just pull out onto the dual carriageway and drive along the dual carriageway.
Do you know what annoys me, Stuart? Right,
yep.
Just very briefly, is buses that do the same. They don't use the bus lane. You're driving around the back of City Hall and they're not in the bus lane because the bus lane, the light in the bus lane is red, so they use the other lane. I can't do the vice versa.
Yes, that is right. But again, if you're travelling down the Ormer Road and you see all the cars parked in the bus lane, it's horrendous.
Okay, we could go on and start talking about taxis and how they park and all that stuff, but I'd get in trouble. Anyway, Stuart, thank you very much. Malachy O'Doherty, thank you very much. And Nick Freeman, also known as Mr. Loophole, thank you as well.